Hello and welcome to today's presentation. Today's presentation is around choosing the right enterprise endpoint management solution. And before we actually go into this presentation, let me take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Atul Raizada, and I have been creating technical deep dive videos for last almost a year now. This is one of my hobby and an effort to give back to community. And just as a disclaimer, I am neither a Microsoft employee or this presentation is not sponsored by any vendor. This is my personal viewpoint to help organizations to choose the right enterprise endpoint management solution. With that, as all of us know that there are plenty of choices available in this marketplace, right? I'm not going to read all of them. But one solution that I'll be talking today in this presentation would be Microsoft Enterprise Mobility plus Security, which in my viewpoint is a complete holistic enterprise endpoint management solution for organizations of all sizes, all types, all kinds, right? And we'll get into that. With that, let's just start moving on and see what is the current business challenge, technical challenge that we are trying to address. So just as in respect to the mobile uses growth that we have been seeing and noticing, all of us are witness to it. The Gartner reported in almost 2017 that the demand for mobile app development services will grow almost about 5 times faster than internal IT organization. Now, that's pretty profound in my viewpoint, and that's quite a daunting challenge to almost every organization. And Gartner also predicted that by 2019 there would be almost about 2.5 billion units, mobile device units, right? So that gives you the scope of what all of us are experiencing. Another statistics here is, if you really look carefully, that mobile internet traffic percentage of total web traffic in November 2018 was globally is about 48.2%. That speaks for itself. That speaks for itself. The popularity of the mobile device, the compute that is happening on the mobile device, the end user preference to operate more on mobile devices than on a conventional devices, right? And at the same time, when this usage is increasing on a daily basis, and 2.1 billion devices are going to show up by 2019 or maybe more. At the same time, the app share of the total mobile minutes is also significantly has increased. This statistics is May 2017, and obviously in last 1 year it has gone exponentially high. And that gives you a scenario that when organizations are uh, you know leading with a decision process to choose a right solution in this market space, that's not an easy solution, that's not an easy choice. We have got plenty of choices, and because this is a popular growing market, as a result more and more vendors are showing up with the promise of providing feature sets um, that could be important or not important to organizations. With that in mind, if we go further down, when we have to choose a right solution for any enterprise, and again I emphasize on any enterprise, that could be any size, any kind, any type, the key considerations that we have to look into that, okay, the feature sets that the solution offers, obviously that's extremely important. Then when we compare the features, we have to keep in mind the cost, because cost is extremely important. You may have features, or you may have cost but it doesn't have the feature. You may have features but it is exponentially costly. So you have to have a perfect balance between features and cost, which is what we are going to try to justify in my presentation. It should be an enterprise level solution, and what actually I mean of enterprise solution we'll see in next few slides. Then endpoint protection is also important and extremely necessary as a part of your solution, where we talk about the policies, the compliance, the anti-malware, and whole 9 yard here, which is the core area of our discussion today. Security is an over demanding thing. We all know that how important security is. I don't have to go and specify that. So this initiative is all around security. So let's see the solution that we are going to talk today, whether it provides you a required security umbrella that fits and meets your IT security roadmap as well, right? So that's extremely important. The vendor risk or vendor risk management has gone significantly high in last few years because the number of vendors have constantly been increasing, and the enterprises are running a challenge with the vendor management, and vendor risk management is a key component of vendor management, and we need to justify that the solution that we are presenting today meets the challenges of vendor risk management. We'll see in next few slides. Technical support, needless to say, that is extremely important. The solution is end user facing. It has to be end user friendly, and we have to provide the adequate support, because if our end user experience is not good, they're not going to use this solution, right? So extremely important that you work with a vendor that can provide you adequate technical support to provide a better and improved user experience. And I mentioned earlier that mobile apps are increasing and will continue to increase in next few years. There's already a blooming mobile apps market because of several cloud initiatives that is happening in the industry. Whether you look into AI or BI or SAP, or there's no end of these applications being pushed to the mobile devices. So mobile application management, which is referred as MAM, is extremely important, and we need to see that the solution that we are presenting meets your different choices, different categories, different classification for you, and we'll try to talk about it in our next slide or next few slides. The updates is also important. When we talk about updates to devices, um, not only it helps you in minimizing your overall cost, but all these initiatives are also related to a better resource management, right? When we have to deploy these updates or these solutions, obviously cost is one factor, but you cannot undermine the number of resources and the hours required to complete those tasks. So that's extremely important. And when we look into all these factors, it is also almost essential and or mandatory in my viewpoint whether the solution meets with your cloud approach or cloud IT roadmap. And we'll try to see the solution that I'm going to present to you, whether it meets that requirement or not. And eventually, if we look in together all these variables or points or factors or consideration, whether we can call the solution as a complete solution or it still remains a partial solution, right? And that is the intent of today's discussion. It's not going to be a technical demo. You will find throughout this presentation a reference to a variety of technical deep dive demos that are already present on the same YouTube channel where you're watching this presentation, and I'll keep pointing you towards those, and you're more than welcome and encouraged to watch those videos to learn deeper and more information around all those different functionality, feature sets, and workloads. With that, let's just move on. And the solution that I'm presenting today, which in my viewpoint meets all these considerations that I have mentioned in my last slide, is Enterprise Mobility plus Security from Microsoft, right? And again, this is my personal view. I had mentioned in earlier, I'm not a Microsoft employee, so you take it with that impression. Enterprise Mobility plus Security, in my viewpoint, is a holistic, complete, and enterprise endpoint management solution. And I am emphasizing here on endpoint management solution, not just comparing it with an MDM, conventional MDM solution, because in my viewpoint, this solution is way beyond an MDM solution. And when we are trying to compare the cost of other MDM solution and cost of the solution that we are going to present in later slides, you will see why it is so important to understand the difference and why I'm emphasizing on endpoint management, just not a mobile device management solution, right? And looking further down, Microsoft Enterprise plus Mobility plus Security is all in one identity, provides you the mobile management, security, as well as data protection, That's one thing missing in this slide from Microsoft. And how it accomplishes that is by combining three different components, which is Azure Active Directory Premium, which helps you to run a identity driven security, which is extremely important, and that would be a core discussion throughout this presentation. Then Microsoft Intune, which is the true MDM solution that we are talking about, which is the core and sitting in the center. And when we talk about data protection, the Azure Rights Management Services comes into picture, which is now referred as information protection. We'll talk about it in more details as we move further. Right. So let's start looking into those variables or points. The first thing that we need to look into the solution feature or endpoint device management features, right? So when we talk about this solution where enterprise mobility plus security, then let's start looking into and diving into the feature sets. As many of you already might know that Microsoft EMS is offered in two different subscriptions. One is E3 and second is E5. And at a very high level, what does it offer you? The E3 is offering Azure Active Directory Premium P1, while E5 is Premium P2. Both of them offer Intune, which is the core mobile device management solution. Then E3 offers you Azure Information Protection P1, and E5 offers you Azure Information Protection P2. We'll talk about, or you will be able to see that in my demo, the difference between these two. Then Advanced Threat Analytics, ATA, as well as when you go to E5, you are added with Azure Advanced Threat Protection, ATP, Azure ATP, and then Cloud App Security. Now, many times, just a quick note here, when you talk about Advanced Threat Protection, ATP, Microsoft is using this three-letter acronym in multiple places. You will find an Office 365 ATP, you can find in Storage ATP, you can find an Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and so on and so forth. This particular thing is about Azure Advanced Threat Protection, which I will try to detail in our next few slides. Right? So when we are comparing the solutions that are available in the market, this itself is a clear-cut differentiator for you to consider, right? Are you just looking into an MDM solution, or you are looking a complete suite of services that provide you a better protection, better services, better feature sets, better value proposition, better value for your buck, and also helps you in improving your overarching business objectives in terms of your um, you know audience. When you talk about audience in terms of your application, who should be able to access it and what else or what not, that's we are going to see in our next slide, which would be a little bit more detailed slide. So as I mentioned, that Microsoft EMS is around identity and access management, identity driven security, and obviously the one of the key factor here to be considered is a simplified access management and security, right? You will see it once you start using it that you can centrally manage single sign-on across devices, data center, and cloud. So unlike other solution, this is not a cloud-based solution only. This is a hybrid solution which takes care of your on-prem and cloud initiative. And that is the beauty of the solution. Multi-factor authentication, many of you are familiar with the MFA, which is a kind of a new security norm now, and I think every single organization have started using one or the other way of using MFA. Microsoft Azure MFA is quite popular. In last 3 or 4 years of my working with different customers, I have seen almost every single customer taking advantage of Microsoft multi-factor authentication. Right? So that's being offered with the solution. Many of the solutions that you have on your desk that you're considering might not even talk about it, but extremely important. Conditional access. This is Azure Conditional Access, where you could provide the policies that could control the user, location, device, app level, for blocking or challenging the user access. So this is extremely important in my viewpoint. This is one of a very powerful offering from Microsoft, and every single customer that has started using Office 365 or one or the other workloads in Azure have been using conditional access. This is extremely popular, And you will see the benefit of this once you start using this service from Microsoft. If you're already using that, then I don't have to, expand on it. But if you have not used it yet, I strongly recommend you to look at it. Some of my demos would show you multi-factor authentication as well as conditional access on the same YouTube channel. Furthermore, when we move forward, the risk-based conditional access, which is offered by Intune, which can use Microsoft machine learning and intelligent security graph to block access when the risk is detected. This is in real-time stuff, which is extremely powerful. And as we all know that the security challenge is an ever growing, ever alarming challenge. It keeps changing almost on every minute and every hour, right? So it's important that we are vigilant and our solution can take care of the growing amount of challenges on a day-to-day basis, on an hourly basis, and this helps us uh, to provide that functionality and feature to your organization. Advanced security reporting. This is again very important because any security solution that you put in place is no good if it just provides you, that hey, there are some security related concerns or issues. But when you talk about advanced security reporting, it ties back further down into automation of correcting and checking, taking control of or taking care of those events as well. With Microsoft Azure, you have the advantage of not only getting the security reporting, but also to automate certain process behind it to take the corrective action, right? Extremely important, extremely powerful. You will see it, and I hope I would be able to show you in one of my demos sometime. Privilege identity management. This is called as a Microsoft PIM, extremely powerful solution. Once again, what happened here is that Microsoft came with the two new three-letter acronym related privilege identity management, which are also referred as GIA. And GIA is two different definition. One is JIA GIA and second is JEA GIA. The first GIA is JIA GIA is just-in-time administration, and the second GIA is JEA GIA, which is just enough administration. Slightly confusing, but I can't help you. That's Microsoft nomenclature or naming convention, right? So privilege identity management falls into the just enough administration, where we can provide you a timely administrative access to online services. So pretty much in a very nutshell, a user requests a certain administrative privileges and we grant them on a timely basis, and once that time is finished, that access is taken away. Throughout this process, those identities are managed and hidden, and they are absolutely secure in terms of a possible attack in your organization. In addition, when you are buying Microsoft EMS, you are also getting a Windows Server Client Access License and CALs, and all of us are aware of that they are not cheap. So when you're looking into overall cost of the solution, this is also one of the factors that you should consider, that the CALs are included into your EMS subscription. Moving forward, when we talk about the managed mobile productivity, obviously the mobile device management which is offered by Intune is extremely important. We can enroll corporate and personal devices to provision setting, enforce compliance, and protect your corporate data, right? One big statement here, but once you start looking into a more deeper dive into Intune, I think you will better understand that. The important part here, which I would also be talking down the road or down in this presentation, is data segregation, right? And how you differentiate between a corporate and personal data on same device. Basically making the BYOD a true reality with this solution, right? And that's extremely important. That's a pretty powerful approach when we talk about the BYOD approach and the mobile device management solution. As I already mentioned to you about mobile application management, or MAM, MAM, this is a very interesting area because more and more applications are coming, mobile applications are coming into the market. In order to publish them, configure them, and update them, and making sure that they are secure, their corporate data is secured, is a real daunting challenge, right? And there are different scenarios in that space, right? Many times all the users would have their personal devices that they would not like to enroll to your corporate solution, and then what you do, right? So we'll talk about that how does Microsoft meets these challenges of mobile application management in our next few slides, and that would give you the vision and the scope that Microsoft has considered when we are talking about a true enterprise endpoint device management solution, not just the mobile device management solution. Obviously, advanced Microsoft Office 365 data protection. All of us know that this is one of the most popular SaaS offering by Microsoft, and more and more customers are using Office 365. Some of them have already converted themselves to Office 365. Many of them are in a process to move to Office 365. And obviously, because both of them are SaaS offering from Microsoft, they integrate well enough with each other and provide you additional security capabilities, right? Now, integrated PC management. This is one of other distinguisher for EMS. The reason here is that EMS is not just scoping or covering only the mobile phones or mobile devices. It goes beyond that, and your PCs and laptops are also managed from one unified centralized console. Same way from hardware and software configuration reporting, all done through one single centralized management console, which is very powerful. So not only we are covering all kinds of endpoints, which is the key consideration here, and just not the mobile devices, we also are providing and helping. When I say we, that means Microsoft. I'm sorry. Um, that means we are also helping you to provide you a very user-friendly operational management interface, right? So you could have a good solution, but as long as it is not user-friendly, it is not administrative friendly, it's not going to work for us. And you will find when you start looking into Microsoft EMS, Intune in particular, that this is relatively made simpler. The user interface or administrative interface is pretty intuitive, and it is all managed through Azure, right? So extremely important part of our presentation here. And integrated on-premises management, right? So the solution goes and beyond the cloud and also can be extended into your on-prem, and your on-prem solutions can also be extended into the cloud. That's the beauty. It's just not a one-way traffic or one-way journey. It's a two-way journey. We can take the Microsoft cloud-based solutions to on-prem, and as well as we can take advantage of on-prem solutions to the cloud too, which is pretty unique in my viewpoint, taking advantage of SCCM or System Center Endpoint Protection for your PCs and Mac and Unix and whatnot, right? So extremely powerful solution. And again, when I'm talking about all these feature set, I just want to take you back into your consideration when you are looking into making this decision, whether the other solution that you have in your inbox or on your desk that you're considering can meet all these feature sets, all these challenges that I'm presenting here in this presentation. Information protection is one of the key consideration of all CISOs, all CFOs, CIOs. This is one thing that keeping the CISOs, CIOs, CFOs, IT administrators up in the night, because the data is all over. Data could be in cloud, data could be on-prem data centers, on file servers, on users' laptops, user desktops, mobile devices, and data could be in transit, data could be in rest. It's just a monumental task to manage your information protection, not only from the security perspective, but also from the compliance perspective. So in my viewpoint, Microsoft has done a real great job to tackle this complex challenge through their solution, which is called as Azure Information Protection, or AIP, which helps you with persistent data protection, intelligent data classification and labeling, document tracking and revocation, and as well as encryption key management per regulatory needs. Um, this is such a large topic that I cannot go in more details in this presentation, because then you would not watch the rest of the presentation. I strongly recommend you to please watch my presentation or my deep dive technical demo on AIP, Azure Information Protection. That is also in the same YouTube video channel. I can guarantee you would like it. This is that presentation, that technical demo is one of my most liked and most watched demo. I'm sure that I encourage you that please watch that, and hopefully that would give you some better insight on Azure Information Protection and then data protection in overall. And I have been focusing from the very beginning of this presentation that Microsoft EMS is offering an identity-driven security. And identities being provided through Azure Active Directory, which we'll talk in next slides. But a couple of offerings that Microsoft has in that space for the E3 and E5 is Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics. Then you have got Microsoft Cloud App Security and Advanced Threat Protection, right? When we talk about Azure Advanced Threat Protection or Azure Advanced Threat Analytics here, keep in mind that your Active Directory is the key repository. I'm talking about on-prem Active Directory is the key repository of your identities. And we all know that identity theft is not very uncommon, right? How often we see that this particular large enterprise or organization have identities have been stolen, blah, 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 right? One of the key areas of storing those identities is Active Directory. And what these solutions are doing is that they are monitoring your Active Directory, or rather precisely the domain controller. Every single network traffic, every single network packet that is hitting these domain controllers is being monitored in the real time. So whether it's a brute force attack or a DNS reconnaissance attack or an attack is being built from ground level to the top, you are being advised and notified in real time. And that's extremely powerful. I cannot emphasize enough here, friends, that how powerful this solution is and how easy and how vulnerable we are when we talk about identity theft, right? It is not a joke here. I strongly recommend you to please watch my advanced threat protection demo. There are two separate videos, two parts of it on my video channel. I'm sure you would like it. I'm sure you would see that how vulnerable we are if we do not take the right measures and right security initiative in your environment. It's just a matter of time. It's a time bomb in my viewpoint that is hanging up there. I'm not trying to scare anybody here, but the fact of the matter is that we are all, security is an ongoing threat. Security should be an enabler, not a destroyer, in my viewpoint. So if we can take right action here to be aware, to be smart, to be intelligent, to deal with these threats, then that means we are keeping pace with the possible security threats that are happening in the industry, right? And if you watch this advanced threat protection, I'll show you the exact attack that is happening in real time and how does Microsoft Azure Advanced Threat Protection reacts to that and reports to it. I think this is one of the unique video that you will find on my video channel. Now, we have mentioned about Azure Active Directory in last slide, which is one of the key area or key component to provide you a identity driven security. So it's important to understand what this offering looks like, right? So let's get into that. So I'm not gonna read all that stuff here and bore you with all this material, but it is for you. You can read it at your pleasure. But Azure Active Directory is offered at free, basics, premium P1, premium P2, and Office 365 apps. Pretty much if you have deployed Office 365, you already have an Azure Active Directory. Pretty much Azure Active Directory is automatically created, and it is the repository of your identities. And the best part of Azure Active Directory that I have been talking about in some of my other videos, that Azure Active Directory is a repository of identity. That means you can get the identities from different sources. You could have a cloud-based identity. You can sync your on-prem Active Directory, or to be precise, multiple Active Directory forests into one single Azure Active Directory. So pretty much Azure Active Directory becomes like a bucket of identity where you could pull identities into that, and then depending on identities, their authorization, their authentication method could be different. And that's pretty powerful, right? At some point I'll explain you what does that really mean and how can it help organizations when you are doing mergers or acquisitions, or you ended up into multiple Active Directory forests. Pretty powerful stuff. Single sign-on, which is again the key consideration, friends, here is to provide end user a seamless experience whether they are using an on-prem application or they are using a cloud-based application. So single sign-on is a key factor that we have to look into, and Microsoft offers single sign-on through ADFS. You could use third-party providers like Ping or Okta, or there are multiple other third-party providers that also helps you with single sign-on, right? And that is where the end user experience is seamless, which is a very important thing. Now, if you go back into your MDM solution, none of those MDM solutions by default would provide you all those functionality, which is what is offered here in this solution by default. B2B collaboration, right? And here is what I mentioned to you earlier, that organization can change their audience graph completely. What I intend to say here is, I think the best way to explain you is to explain you with an example. So I had a customer who has invested a lot of money on their on-prem SharePoint, a lot of customization, which probably would not be easy to bring it on SharePoint online. Years worth of work, and their business processes, their whole business runs around SharePoint. They have got several external customers. Now, as a result, when you need to provide your on-prem SharePoint access to external users, pretty much with the basic solution that you have, you would be creating those identities in your on-prem Active Directory, which in my viewpoint is a huge security threat, right? Which you should not be doing it. So if you use Microsoft Azure B2B, right, which is very simple to deploy and configure, pretty much no additional hardware required, no additional cost required when you use this solution. In that case, how easy it would be for you or your organization to invite your business partner, whether it's a reseller or a partner or a consumer, and ask and send an invite on an email, and the email is accepted, and here you go, and that particular user or users start using your application. So your investment, your basic ROI or TCO on the solution that you have created, immediately goes up. You can prove to your CFO, hey, by adopting this solution, I have already improved the ROI and TCO just by taking the advantage of Azure B2B or Azure B2C, where you can use the advantage of the social networking site we'll talk about later. But this is very, very powerful, which not only is should be considered into your solution, but also should be considered from the overall cost and overall benefit, the business value, the business proposition, the ROI and TCO, right? So you cannot just undermine the importance and of this particular solution that is being offered to you through EMS. Self-service password changes for cloud users, right? So there is two different option that has been given in this presentation. One is on the next slide. I'll cover both of them here. Self-service password changes for cloud users as well as on-prem users. So you can reset password, unlock account, right? Now, again, this is gonna go into your overall ROI and TCO, which you should consider with your cost factor. Basically, the other MDM solution might not be able to provide you all these features. And think about it, that how much help desk cost goes down if you allow the users to be able to do the self-service password reset or unlock their account. Not only it minimizes the help desk cost, but all that noise that you have in your environment and people complaining and bitching about, hey, I couldn't do my work for 4 hours because my account was locked out, or I could not, nobody was able to change or reset my password, is all gone because all user responsibility. So tremendous value proposition here, my friends, and that could not be undermined. It's hard to justify that by just looking into and comparing the cost of enterprise mobility suite against another MDM solution, unless you start looking into all these features deep dive, right? Now, obviously, we are syncing on-prem Active Directory to Azure, which we already talked about. Security usage and reports is also important, and depending on which subscription you are using, you can have a basic reports or you could have an advanced report. Trust me, that this is so monumental. And I can give you a real life scenario where I had ran into that. One of my customers started getting phishing emails and attack, a brute force attack on their Active Directory. And I was able to get into the advanced report and let them know, hey, this attack is coming from Nigeria. This is where this particular Mac machine is. This is the IP address of this source where this attack came in. I was able to find out in probably less than 3 minutes. And immediately, with the help of conditional access, we were able to block that completely, right? Not only we were able to see the report, as I mentioned earlier, but we were able to take the corrective action right there because we have the functionality built into the solution. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? So solution has to be looked holistically when you're making this very important decision for your organization. And that is the whole premise of my presentation today. Just not look and compare the MDM versus MDM approach here. That's exactly what I'm trying to suggest to you. So look the solution in a much holistic and broader viewpoint. Now, when we go into the premium side, P1 and P2, before you start looking into these features, make sure you also understand that I think I mentioned earlier that E3, Enterprise Mobility Suite E3, is giving you premium P1, while E5, EMS V5 is giving you premium P2. So when you're comparing these features, you just need to make sure that what subscription you would end up buying. And my cost slide or pricing slide would also explain you that once we get there. Right, we already talked about group-based access management and provisioning, which is there. Self-service password reset, I already talked about. Company branding is very important for organization. You have that features built into the solution. Application proxy, many people don't talk about it, and I think this is one of the area that many people just ignore and probably do not even understand that. Azure AD application proxy is a beautiful solution that helps you minimize your investment into DMZ. All of us know that DMZs are tricky, expensive, equipment and all that, configuration, network people. Now you could avoid and minimize your cost of your DMZ by using Azure AD application proxy. And I'm working with a very big customer right now and helping them with their cloud security. There are about 200 applications that we are publishing through Azure AD application proxy, providing them single sign-on with Kerberos authentication, providing them the conditional Azure access beside it, so you're getting an MFA, you're getting an application proxy. When you see the solution in holistically, then you see the value of this proposition. Otherwise, you just say, hey, MDM, MDM, right? That's not the point. Let me try to explain you this, right? The customer had a exchange environment on-prem, and what we did here is that we put that on-prem exchange server behind Azure AD application proxy. We configured the conditional access behind it. So now we have accomplished, from the security perspective, multiple things. We have secured our exchange, on-prem exchange, through the reverse proxy. We have the tunnels, separate tunnels happening here. We have provided the single sign-on from the end user experience perspective. So there's no difference. And we also enable the MFA, the multi-factor authentication. So if the users are coming from untrusted network, then they are prompted for a second authentication through their phone. How powerful is that, right? And again, when you're looking into this solution, I would sound like a broken record here, but those are the features, those are the factors, those are the security consideration that makes EMS as a different animal completely when you talk about other MDM solutions. And that is the whole idea behind putting this presentation. I hope this makes sense. I hope I'm not exaggerating. Again, when we continue looking into the Azure Active Directory feature sets, right? So self-service password set, we already talked about. Advanced group features, we already talked about. Devices object two-way synchronization, which is happening for password reset. Unless you do that, you cannot change the password or unlock your account in your on-prem Active Directory, right? Multi-factor authentication. We briefly talked about it. Multi-factor authentication is just not limited to cloud-based applications, right? Whether it's Office 365 or SharePoint or whatnot. But you could also extend the multi-factor authentication to a variety of other workloads that you have in Azure, right? Including APIs. You have got tons of stuff, web app, functions, and whatnot. But you could also deploy an on-prem MFA server that could take care of your remote desktop or terminal servers. You could also deploy MFA server on an existing IIS. I ended up doing it on Exchange 2010 because that was not the right solution. Azure AD proxy was not meant for Exchange 2010. So I said, okay, here you go, customer. I'm going to provide you an MFA by using the IIS component of your client access server. And here you go. And the customer was delighted by that experience. Now, if you happen to use Microsoft Identity Manager, which is again an extremely powerful solution, and many customers use that, you are getting the CALs free. So again, when you're looking into the cost, this cannot be undermined, right? This is an additional feature set that you have. If you happen to use that, you don't have to worry about CALs. And Microsoft Identity Manager is not a cheap product in any way, right? So this is a phenomenal cost saving for you. Cloud App Discovery, which is very, very powerful. Automatic password, connect health, conditional access based on group and location. It keeps going on and on and on, and you start using this feature set and you really make a change. That business transformation or the digital transformation that we keep hearing starts becoming real when you start using all these feature set. Your organization see a tremendous difference in their operations compared to what they have been conventionally doing it, right? And that's exactly the change that you try to induct into your organization. That's exactly what's happening when you start leveraging these feature sets here. Right, so I'm not going to read all that, but privilege identity management we already talked about. Cloud app security integration that is already there. So these are the feature sets that you are getting in EMS. Identity protection is extremely important, that you will see. And you can join your devices to Azure Active Directory, right? That's also very powerful. BitLocker recovery is also controlled here. Now, there is also one more feature which I think I would talk in the later slides, which is called as an Azure AD domain services. So instead of deploying the domain controllers as infrastructure as a service in Azure, you could actually start using Azure AD domain services if you have your VMs in Azure and you just want to join those VMs and manage them through Azure AD domain services. Actually, I have a good, interesting technical demo for that. If you're interested, you are more than welcome to watch that. MDM auto enrollment, self-service, BitLocker recovery, additional local administrator to the Windows 10 devices, right? And especially when we talk about MDM auto enrollment, there is one specific section that I would like to draw your attention, which is Microsoft Application Management, and see how does Microsoft Intune or EMS fits with your organization roadmap. With that, let's just keep moving on. And now we move into the Intune, which is primarily the Microsoft MDM solution here. And let's dive into and see what that can do for you. Microsoft Intune as a mobile device management solution, I must say that Microsoft has done a real good job here. I would say kudos to Microsoft team to put that together. Beautiful solution that covers mobile device. I'm not gonna bore you again with this complex architecture here, but if you just need to understand at a very high level, Microsoft Intune is allowing you to configure your devices through policies and profiles. You can protect your data using Azure Information Protection that I talked about earlier. You could also do the device compliance policy. You can have a conditional access inside Intune, not the conditional Azure access that we talked about earlier. You can manage your app, whether it is a deployment of your apps, whether it's update of your app, whether it is protection, data protection and compliance around your app. That is all offered through Intune, and Intune is offered through Azure. So the management or administrative interface is Azure. It's built into Azure. It's a SaaS offering. Backend, it is talking to Azure Active Directory to provide you the identity-driven security here. And the other SaaS applications in like Office 365 are integrated here, so you get a better experience. By the way, there are about 3,000 plus SaaS apps that you could take advantage in Azure that all take advantage of these features. So the scope, it starts growing wider and wider and wider. Again, looking back into your conventional MDM solution, this is, to me, this starts making a lot of sense, right? Not just confining yourself and silo yourself into a narrow spectrum of mobile devices, rather expanding it way beyond, which meets with all your IT roadmap stories. Whether it's a, if you start looking into deeper here, expense management, mobile threat defense connector, network access, on-premises, apps management, registration, enrollment, auto enrollment. This is this is just mind blowing in my viewpoint, if I'm allowed to use that word here. And there are several settings. I think there is, in my viewpoint, there are overwhelming number of options that are available to you as a customer to optimize and customize and tailor it to your business needs, to your security specifics, right? Not just my way or the highway, which many other MDM solution providers does for you. You will just be amazed to see that how many settings you have, how you can integrate with on-prem system center, right? So you're taking advantage of your existing investment by taking the solution into a newer level, taking the advantage of existing system center endpoint protection. If you already have invested in that, you don't want to throw it into garbage. You can take advantage of that. So all of that together start making a lot of sense, right? Besides Intune, don't forget about Azure Active Directory Premium, right? The data protection that is also combined together. So when you're looking at this solution, MDM is one central component, but it is coupled by multiple other factors or variables that we talked earlier, or we'll be talking in next few slides. And that is why I'm so passionate about this, right? You might have already seen so far in my way of talking here that I'm very, very passionate, because I think that helping a customer is the right thing to do. Letting you know about the right stuff is good to do, right? That's exactly what I'm doing. Not just comparing or not trying to, badmouth any particular MDM solution here. They're all good. They all have advantages and disadvantages. But I personally feel when we are trying to put a solution for an organization, it should be considered holistically, right? And that's where the enterprise solution comes into picture. The enterprise solution, as per definition, are designed to integrate multiple phases of a company's business through the interchange of information from various business process areas and related databases. So I'm not going to read all this, right? You can read it. But you will find throughout this presentation that Microsoft EMS meets all aforesaid requirement, because it is an enterprise level solution, right? It really meets all the challenges for an organization of all types, all kinds, all sizes. This is the core area of security. This whole thing is security driven. So let's try to dive into and see what is Microsoft offering here in the security space. Now, as the name of Enterprise Mobility plus Security itself suggests, EMS is primarily around security, right? That's exactly what we are trying to accomplish. We are trying to manage, administer these devices in a secure and well-defined way, well-controlled, well-managed compliance perspective. And many of you might be aware of that Microsoft is investing over $1 billion a year in cybersecurity. It's a constant investment that they are making, because Microsoft is trying to provide a holistic enterprise security, not just in silos of managing mobile devices, because that's a one tiny piece in my viewpoint. When we start looking into security overall, then you'll start looking into a broader spectrum and see whether the solution that you're trying to put together for your organization meets your overarching IT security roadmap, and that is where it fits into, right? And that is the beauty that Enterprise Mobility plus Security brings into. I created this video about a year back to just give you a very high level. Actually, there is a video article on my YouTube called as a Demystifying Microsoft Security. You're more than welcome to go and watch it. But what it is saying is that when we are looking at the Microsoft security, right? So this is a very narrow spectrum. It is very difficult to define all of them. But when we talk about email, we are checking and taking care of email from the security perspective, the perimeter layer, right? So EOP, which is Exchange Online Protection, is taking care of malware and viruses and all whatnot, right? And at the same time, Office 365 ATP is taking care of your phishing email. So we are trying to prevent an attack right at the perimeter layer before even it enters into your environment, before it enters into Azure, right? And that could be on-prem Exchange, or that could be Office 365, whatever the case may be. So we are at that level. Then we get into the endpoint management, which is EMS, where we are taking care of your mobile devices as well as your PCs, laptops, Mac machines, and whatnot, right? All that feature that we just talked about it. Then we also talk about multi-factor authentication, which is coupled with the conditional Azure access, provides you a phenomenal area of providing, controlling, managing compliance and security for your organization, right? Whether that MFA is for a SaaS application, whether that MFA is for an on-prem application, whether that MFA is for a native cloud application, CNE, all that is covered. Now, if you go back further up here, that you will find that we are offering you the Azure IPS, which is Azure Information Protection System, where you can classify, label, and use the Azure Rights Management Services for protection, right? Very nice presentation that I already made to you. I already suggested to you. Please watch my technical video on Azure AIP. That is pretty powerful stuff. Then we have Azure Activity Center to see what's actually happening in the cloud. We have Azure ATP, which is I mentioned to you earlier. Privilege Identity Management Manager, I talked to you earlier. You will have the video, technical videos on all of them. Some of them are already there on my technical video. Some of them I'm adding it as I speak to you. Azure Security Center, Azure Log Analytics, OMS, Microsoft Cloud App Security, MCAS, Azure Compliance Manager, the RBAC that is being given to you, and the different other security initiative around storage, API management, functions. I'm working on almost all of them. So stay tuned. You will start seeing more videos coming in those lines as well. And when we talk about on-prem Active Directory, right, you already have PKI, certificate servers, labs, GIA, which I mentioned to you earlier, just enough administration, JIA GIA, which is just in time administration, privilege access management, privilege access workstation, system center operations manager, system center endpoint protection, list goes on and on, hardening, group policies, restricted group. There are tons of stuff that you could do from the security space, right? And as I said, that's the Microsoft vision, not just silo it, not just look security from a narrow vision, rather look at the security from a much wider perspective so that enterprise can be offered a better end-to-end security, right? Just not some silo security which does not match with your other security initiative. And that's the beauty of this solution that I'm trying to present to you. And as I have been mentioning that EMS is around identity-driven security and access management, which is primarily using Azure Active Directory Premium. I already mentioned to you what Azure ATP and ATA can do for you. Please watch my video. Azure B2B, which is business to business collaboration. You can also watch my video on that. Azure B2C, where you can take the advantage of social networking sites to expand your audience for your application, whether that's a cloud application or on-prem application. Pretty phenomenal, right? So think about it. The investment that you have made on your application is now expanded to billions of users in a matter of minutes, right? How powerful is that? Without putting any additional network, without putting any additional thing here, you are able to extend the benefit of your services to, mankind all over the globe. And that's the power of Azure B2C. Multi-factor authentication, conditional access, we have talked enough about it, self-service password reset. Now, Intune is also allowing you to do the Windows updates. So again, for Windows 10, we'll talk about in next slide. That is also possible. Application management, Intune is there to help you. Devices and application management, where Intune is the MDM solution, which is providing you policy-driven management, profile-driven management, conditional access, data segregation, and selective wipe. Include laptop, desktop, and mobile devices, right? So data segregation is pretty powerful, where you can segregate corporate data with personal data. and more, this is extremely important as we move further. The the users are going to use their personal devices, and they would still work on their corporate data, right? So it's becoming a daunting challenge. That goes back into BYOD here, where you could, if you take the advantage of this functionality and feature, then your BYOD is rather much easier because you can control your corporate data no matter whether that's your organization control device or whether that's a user device, right, or user personal device, and that's extremely powerful. I have spoken enough about information protection, so I'm not going to waste your time on this section here. Please watch my video, as I mentioned earlier. And when I talk about endpoint protection, and Microsoft Intune offers endpoint protection for Windows 10 and Mac, you can go to this refer to configure that easily. So again, this is a cost saving. This is resource optimization. The resources that were engaged earlier to manage that, now probably you could provide them some higher priority jobs. So that's a optimal resource management, optimal cost management. And then Intune offers you the compliance policies, which is extremely important, that can be tailored to meet the organization's specific compliance requirement. And there are several of them. I'm just giving you a few examples here, right? Um, there is conditional access, use password to access device, encryption, whether device is jailbroken or rooted, minimum OS version. You need to watch another technical video on Intune, which I think I should be doing it in next month or so. That would give you a little bit more detail on Intune technical abilities or technical deep dive. Now, mobile app management, I mentioned to you earlier, this is an interesting area, right? So as you already know that more and more mobile apps are being brought over by organizations, and there is almost a flood of these mobile apps, if I'm allowed to say so. In managing these mobile applications is pretty daunting task, for the lack of better words here. And there are situations where users are going to use their personal devices. It's hard to say that users would not use their personal devices and still use your corporate data. That's the nature of the business. That's the nature of the workplace that we are into. Gone are those days when the workplace used to be an office desk or office desktop, right? Workplace is all over the places. So this is the modern world that we all live in, and in that scenario, it is possible that user would not like their personal devices to be enrolled with your corporate MDM solution. Then what, right? So looking into those, there are three possible strategies, and fortunately, Microsoft Intune, which is part of your EMS or Endpoint Device Management, meets all three of them. One of them is Microsoft Intune MEM only with no MDM at all. That means the user has a personal device. User does not want to register or enroll that device to Intune or any other Microsoft or MDM solution, but we still want to control the application management, and Microsoft Intune can help you do that without enrolling a device. That's pretty powerful. Then there are possibilities that you already have invested into a third-party MDM solution, right? And you have been using it, whether it's an on-prem or a cloud-based solution, and you still want to add the MAM functionality. Can you do that with Microsoft Intune? Of course, you could do that. And the best and ideal in my viewpoint is that you use Microsoft Intune for both MDM and application management, right? And you could do that either. So the flexibility that you need as an organization to choose the right solution for endpoint device management and application management is provided to you and offered to you by Intune, which is pretty unique in my viewpoint, right? Not every MDM provider would help you with this kind of an approach where they could probably meet all possible scenarios that you come across. And then when we talk about application management features, right? Again, I'm not going to read all that. It's up to you to read it. And this slide is here. Basically, this is taken from Microsoft articles, right? So this is nothing that I own myself or I wrote myself. But that gives you an insight of Microsoft application management per platform, right? So that should be helpful to you once you start looking into and deploying the solution for your organization. And then comes the cloud approach, right? So as I mentioned earlier, that enterprise mobility plus security is offered as an Azure SaaS, so therefore it will integrate with other cloud strategies extremely well, whether it's another SaaS service or a PaaS service or is an IaaS or an on-prem, right? And you could use the advantage of Azure AD domain services, which I mentioned earlier, which you could join Azure VMs. The limitation here as of now that you can only join the VMs that are deployed in Azure as an infrastructure as a service. You cannot join on-prem machines to Azure Active Directory domain services unless Microsoft has changed in the last few months. That's what used to be the case. And that avoids the, especially for those organizations who do not want to have a data center and want to operate primarily from cloud, this could be a good option. This could be relatively a good option for using Azure AD domain services. Azure Information Protection we have already talked about. Azure Rights Management is leveraged not only in the cloud or the SaaS, but you could also use on the SharePoint services, on-prem Exchange as well. Azure B2B and Azure B2C we already mentioned earlier and talked about it. Azure AD App Proxy, I have given you detail. There is a video on my YouTube that you can watch to see how the Azure AD Proxy works. And with that, let's move on into the vendor risk management. I think this is also equally important that we cannot just simply ignore. And if you look into the left-hand side of this presentation, the vendor risk management includes multiple things, whether that's a financial, business continuity, reputational, countries or geographical locations, information security, exit strategy, services, and regulatory, right? Now, if you really see here, Microsoft meets all these requirements. And vendor risk management is an important component of vendor management. I mentioned to you earlier that. I don't want to sound like a broken record and read everything for you, but I don't think that I have to establish and mention that Microsoft is a trusted technology partner to almost all kinds, all types, and all sizes of industry. And by the way, Microsoft also enjoys the largest number of industry certifications when you talk about Microsoft services, especially in the cloud. For an example, ISO, CSA, ITAR, CIS, HIPAA, and IRS. Microsoft is continuously working in that area. Recently, they got this, 20,000 to 2011, which is a newer one, which is pretty promising, pretty powerful stuff. So what happens with that when if you happen to choose Microsoft EMS, you can go with the assurance that you don't have to worry about vendor risk management. You are already using Microsoft products in your organization. And on top of it, when you use Microsoft, you come with all these ISO and CSA certification that you could be rest assured that from the vendor risk management perspective, you are absolutely in good hands, right? And that's the point of making and mentioning about the vendor risk management here. Here is the most important part, which could be decisive, and I emphasize which could be decisive in making this whole story true. So if you look carefully here, this is the price. EMS E3 $874, EMS 5 $1480, Intune 6. If you want to just buy Intune, you can also just buy MFA. You can just buy Azure Active Directory Premium P1 for $6 or Azure Active Directory Premium P2 for $9. This is the list price. You may get a better price once if you're working with Microsoft and you can negotiate with them. But interestingly here, right? So if you try to compare the leading MDM solution, that's where it falls into. AirWatch is 618 standard. Most people would not use it. They would go with 1030, which is advanced, or $23.71 for enterprise, while Mobile Iron is about $11.50, and Sophos is $717. In my viewpoint, if you just try to assimilate all the information that we have been talking for last over almost about an hour, it's no-brainer, right? You get EMS E3 for $874 against AirWatch 1030, which includes MFA, which includes Azure Active Directory Premium, which includes Azure ATA, which includes conditional access, which includes obviously Intune, right? So I don't think that there is a match here. For if you look into EMS E5 compared to the enterprise here 2371, $14.80, you get all the possible word features that you are looking for. So even just not the feature side, even from the cost perspective, in my viewpoint, EMS leave everybody behind. And I mean, they are all good product. No bad mouthing against AirWatch or Mobile Iron and so forth. They have been there in the industry for quite some time, and they are good products. But when you are making a decision for your organization, you need to look at holistically. And if you look in holistically all the benefits that I have been speaking for last hour, and compare the price here, I think EMS is a clear-cut winner, right? Um, unless you disagree with me, and you have all the reasons to disagree with me. But my perception here, from my perspective, if I'm the CIO or CEO or a decision maker, for me it becomes no-brainer here to choose EMS as my ongoing solution. It meets with my Azure roadmap. If I am going to use Azure down the road, Azure Active Directory would be leveraged no matter what you do. And in that case, you don't want to just buy them a la carte, right? Multi-factor authentication would be all across, whether this is on-prem or cloud or web app or APIs or whatnot. So basically, that's what the whole intent was. That when you are comparing the feature sets, you are comparing the cost, you are looking into the enterprise solution, you're looking into the security, you're looking into the vendor risk management, you're looking into the completeness of the solution. This is no brainer, right? And that is my conclusion here. Now, if you go further, one more thing that would be the proof in the pudding here, which would be the final slide, I guess. See what happened. Not only what I'm saying, my statement here or my presentation is corroborated by what has happened in industry from 2015 to 2018. This is a testimony to all what I spoke for last 1 hour. See here in 2015, Microsoft was in visionaries and at that to at the second level. Today in June 2018, where is Microsoft? Is actually hitting the leader in the industry in the MDM, which is VMware AirWatch, right? So what I said is now further corroborated. This is the full testimony to what I have been speaking for last 1 hour, and I hope this resonates with you. I truly do, because at the end of the day, if it helps you and your organization to be better prepared, better secured, meet align with your IT roadmap, security roadmap, why would I not choose a product that meets all those criteria and not just rely on a simple MDM solution? And that is my whole presentation today. I want to thank you all for watching it. This has been a good 1 hour, over 1 hour presentation. I never thought I would be doing it for 1 hour, but if you have watched this whole presentation, I cannot thank you enough for sparing your 1 hour. Again, this is my personal viewpoint. No sponsorship, no Microsoft, nobody else, no bad mouthing to any other MDM solution. If it makes sense, then I think I have done my job. Please send your comments. Please do watch my other YouTube channel. And if you like my presentations, do not forget to subscribe as well. Thank you again. Have the rest of your best of your day or night wherever you are, and keep yourself healthy. Thank you. Bye bye.